Back here with Mike's Mustang Repairs, and today we're switching things up. We're taking a break from the Mustang and applying what we've learned to this 2016 Toyota 4Runner. Today's job, a full brake overhaul using a PowerStop Z23 kit. This includes drilled and slotted rotors as well as carbon fiber ceramic brake pads. Now, I've been dealing with some wheel vibration at higher speeds when braking, so replacing these rotors should stop that and also will help dissipate heat a lot better, preventing the shakiness from returning. They're also zinc plated, which means less rust over time. I'm going to walk through how I did this job step by step, nice and simple, so you can get an idea of what to expect when doing a brake job. Here's a list of everything I used for the job broken into 4 sections: must-have tools, specialty tools, chemicals and supplies, and lifting and safety. First things first, loosen up your lug nuts while the vehicle is still on the ground. Don't remove them yet, just break them loose. Next, jack up the vehicle and secure it safely on jack stands. For the front, you need to place 6-ton jack stands on the frame, and for the rear, you can lift from the differential, placing a small block of wood between the jack and the differential, supporting the truck with 3-ton jack stands on the axle. Here's a screenshot of the jack points for the 4Runner. Now, go ahead and remove the wheel. Because of the dissimilar metals between the wheel and the hub, it's common for difficulty in actually removing the wheel. To safely remove, spray the hub lightly with PB Blaster, wait a few minutes, hit the tire, not the rim, on the outside tread with a dead blow hammer. This should break it free. With visibility to the brakes, take a few pictures of how they're set up so you can recreate that in the future. Let's start up front. The process for the front brakes is slightly simpler and will build your confidence. However, the bolts are on very tightly. First, let's gain access to the brake setup. Put your key in the ignition and turn slightly, but not on. This will unlock the steering wheel, allowing you to turn the wheel hub. By turning the wheel, you'll have more space for a breaker bar on those difficult bolts. Loosen the 2 anchor plate bolts first, but don't completely remove them yet. They're torqued to 137 foot-pounds, and after sitting for some time can be stuck on really tight. I had to use a cheater bar attached to my breaker bar after spraying the bolts with PB Blaster. Loosely, if you're able to double the arm length of the breaker bar, you'll reduce the force needed by approximately half. Unhook the ABS brake line bracket using a 12mm socket and set aside that bolt. This will give you more space when removing the caliper. Remove the brake hardware. Use your needle nose pliers to remove the outside clip first and then the bottom one from the holes. Pull out the slide pins. These can be rusted in place, so I had to use an Allen head and hammer to start it through. You might also need to push it back and forth. Twisting is a good approach as well. Now you can remove the brake pads. Pull them out directly using pliers if needed. Fully remove the brake caliper. Don't allow the caliper to hang by the hoses. Rather, I use a bungee cord to support it. At this point, you've got a choice. You can either open the system from the bleeder screw and bleed the brake fluid, or compress the pistons and push the fluid back in. I'm choosing to compress the pistons for this job. Make sure your fluid is slightly below the max line and uncap the brake reservoir. Keep an eye on this level to make sure it doesn't overflow. Clean the surfaces of the piston using brake cleaner and slowly, very slowly, compress the pistons in with a C-clamp and the old brake pad protecting the pistons. You'll see them move and you'll know when they're fully retracted. With that out of the way, remove the rotor. There are 2 holes in the rotor that accept an M8 by 1.25 size bolt. Remember that ABS line bolt? This works perfectly here. If you need a second, the bolts from the skid plate work as well. Ever hear the phrase beating the brakes off a car? Slowly tighten the bolt into the rotor and you'll hear a satisfying pop. This is an awesome solution to a common difficult point in brake jobs. Before installing new parts, clean the hub surface really well with a wire brush. This helps prevent vibration and ensures the rotor sits flush. I used an old toothbrush and anti-seize lubricant to make it easier to remove the rotor in the future. Also, clean and inspect your caliper pistons and brackets and make sure everything looks good. Install your new rotor. Spray both sides with brake clean and try and put it on with clean hands. Use a lug nut or 2 to secure it in place. Reinstall the brake caliper. At this point, I didn't fully torque it down all the way. Grease the outside of the brake pads as well as the ears, making sure not to get grease on the braking surface. Place them into position. Grease the slide pins and insert the top one first. Remember they point from the outside of the car toward the engine bay. Next, do the bottom one, remembering to insert the spring as well. Then install the outside clip or cotter pin. Torque the caliper anchor bolts down to 137 foot-pounds. Take time now to check your work. Install the wheel, starting the lug nuts by hand and tightening in a star pattern. Repeat the exact same process on the other side. If you're only doing the front brakes, pump your brake pedal a few times before driving to reseat the pads. You can lower the car and torque the alloy wheels down to 76 foot-pounds. It's important to get this torque right, as Toyota released a bulletin saying that over-tightening lug nuts can lead to brake rotor runout or warping. Now let's move on to the rear. The process is very similar to the front, so you should start to feel comfortable. First, loosen the 2 slide pin bolts and the 2 anchor plate bolts. Be careful not to catch the bleeder screw with the ratchet if you're using a wobble extension. Now remove the 2 anchor plate bolts and take off the caliper bracket. Now remove the slide pins completely. This will allow you to remove the caliper, and again, don't let it dangle by the brake hoses. I chose to support this side with the box. Again, decide whether you want to bleed the system or compress the pistons. I'll be compressing them. Compress the single pistons using the same technique as the front. Making sure your parking brake is not engaged, pop off the rotor with the same method as the front. If your brake rotor is still not turning freely, you may need to loosen the parking brake cable using the shoe adjuster you'll see through the front of the rotor. Again, clean the hub surface like before. This step is key for preventing future issues. You can mount the rotor backwards first to clean the rear of the rotor before installing it correctly on the wheel hub. For the brake caliper bracket, you need to do a few things, and you can do them in any order. Remove the 3 rubber pieces, the brake cylinder slide bush, the brake dust boot, and the brake cylinder hole plug. A pair of needle nose pliers works great here. You also need to remove the 2 brake pads by pushing them toward the center of the bracket. Then remove the 4 anti-squeal shims, taking note of their orientation for reinstallation. Clean the bracket assembly well with brake clean and a wire brush. To build the bracket back up, first start to assemble the brake pads. The PowerStop pads come with a support plate, but if your kit does not, add them to the back of the pads. Then install the brake wear indicator on the inner pad. It's easiest to load the pads from the interior of the bracket and make sure to grease the shims first. For the 3 rubber pieces, the dust boot and the hole plug go in pretty simply, and then use a wide screwdriver or Allen wrench to help push the bushing through the bracket. Do one final check to make sure everything is installed correctly on the bracket. With everything in place, you can then place the bracket onto the hub and grease the back of the pads. Loosely install the caliper anchor bolts and make sure you include the washer. Reinstall the caliper over the bracket, grease the slide pins, and then hand tighten them. Okay, let's torque everything down. The anchor bolts need to be torqued to 74 foot-pounds and the slide pins need to be torqued to 65 foot-pounds. You're almost there. Repeat on the other side. Once everything is back together, triple check your work. Last step, pump your brake pedal before we do a test run. You want to make sure it's firm. The last part of this job is to brake in your new PowerStop brakes. You're going to do 5 aggressive decelerations from 40 miles per hour down to 10 miles per hour, and then 5 moderate from 35 miles per hour to 5 miles per hour. You're then going to let your brakes cool down by driving around for 5 minutes. This is going to stink. You're going to smell the brakes, but that's okay. That's part of the process. And once you're done with this, you're back on the road. Just for fun, I got a quote on this job from the dealer, and it was going to cost around $1,400. So I saved almost $1,000 while having fun teaching my kids they could do a job like this. If this video helped you, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'll be back next week with another Mustang project. Thanks for watching.